All right, me. It is the same day, and finishing out the end of the day substitute teaching, as well as now being home with there being no power. I have finished reading Edmund Rostand's Cyrano de Bergerac. It is labeled as a hero comedy in 5 acts, which I agree with. This is intended to be a comedy, but much in line with late Shakespeare comedies, it is a tragic comedy, right? The comedic aspect comes from the fact that you have Cyrano de Bergerac, who is this mythological man, does everything right, does everything perfectly. He is the world's greatest poet, the world's greatest playwright, is also the world's greatest fighter and soldier. Anything that he says rallies the troops no matter what. He is perfect in every single way, except for the fact that he has this horrendously long nose that draws the attention of everyone, right? And so you have him versus, what the fuck's his name? Christian. And Christian, he's also a soldier, but he has no ability to say anything meaningful, but he's also exceedingly beautiful. And they end up fighting over the love of Roxanne, who is Cyrano de Bergerac's cousin. As a whole, though, right, it becomes this thing of fighting over the love of Roxanne and what ends up mattering more to the people around, and what ends up mattering more in love. Is it these being this handsome and beautiful person that Christian is, or is it being this complete and absolute soul, but then not having anything that the other one has, right? And that's really what the story is about in so many ways, right? It all kind of comes up to a head of dealing with, what, cat? You were so quiet. You were just perfectly quiet. It comes all to a head of where you're dealing with this thing of where Bergerac is going out of his way to write letters while they are on the front lines, is going out of his way to risk his life constantly to write letters back to Roxanne, but he's writing them in Christian's name, because, back a second, Christian and Roxanne get married basically after one day of knowing each other, in which they see each other from across the room at a play, and then they end up having this kind of very quick love affair in the middle of the night. The Guiche is also in love with Roxanne, who is none of the things, and is going to try to basically force Roxanne to marry him. It all falls apart because Christian ends up marrying Roxanne that same night, but it comes from the fact that Cyrano was pretending to be Christian and wooed Roxanne, but from the darkness. Roxanne falls in love with Christian. They get married very, very quickly. And then immediately Christian, Cyrano, and De Guiche all get sent off to war all on the same night, right? And so like there's a whole bunch of comedic timing there and everything. But right, the key takeaway is that Roxanne is constantly falling in love with Cyrano. It is just that Cyrano is saying what he's saying in pretending to be Christian, right? So that all happens. Cyrano keeps writing letters to Roxanne, but signing them in the Christian's name. It then ends up being that Roxanne travels and decides for herself to come to the front lines immediately after this company of cadets that Cyrano and Christian and De Guiche are in, that they will basically be sacrificed for the war effort. That they're going to draw the that they're going to draw the Spanish fire, so that French may win. And so, you know, there's great amounts of dramatic irony and humor there, of where there's this attempt to get, a lot of it is humor that is based in and around the concept of a woman, which is not great. But the concept of the joke being that they keep trying to get her away from the front lines and tell her to leave, but she just won't listen to them, or she keeps interrupting them. And so like that joke kind of goes and then all this stuff. Christian and Roxanne end up having this conversation in which Roxanne openly says that even if Christian were ugly, Roxanne would love Christian, right? And Christian can no longer go on with this lie. He tells Cyrano this. Cyrano is about to tell Roxanne that he is the one that has been writing all these letters. And just as he's about to tell her, right, they bring back Christian's dead body from being killed after the first volley of gunshots of musket fire. And that is another comedic tragedy, right? Because it is all these things of just the irony and that things are just about to go right for Cyrano in a way that he would never imagine. And it all comes falling apart every single time, right? That happens because of the timing. Cyrano then decides that he's never going to tell Roxanne that, and lets her keep this vision of who Christian is and who Christian was. This all occurs. We then skip forward 15 years in which Roxanne is now living in a nunnery. I guess that's the right convent is the word I'm looking for, in which Cyrano comes and visits her every weekend. As it turns out, Cyrano has been someone has attempted to kill Cyrano, has done so successfully, but in the meantime, while Cyrano is still making it through just barely, he decides to go on one more visit instead of seeking medical attention, in which then he finally admits that he is the one that has written all of these letters and has always written these letters, and those are his true feelings for Roxanne. And then the play's over, and it's this, inherently it is a comedy, right? Because you have this absurd concept of two people that are so polar opposite in the world. But you have this person, Bergerac, who is wonderful and perfect in every single way, except for the fact that he has a gigantic nose. And that is the comedy, right? Certainly in a lot of either modern interpretations or modern readings, technically, I guess, or references to this, the nose becomes a stand-in for, and part of the humor comes from the nose becoming very phallic shaped in a lot of ways, and a lot of dick jokes coming from that. But that's just the comedy, right? Is that the comedy is that this is a perfect person in every single way, except for the fact that he has a very large nose, and then this huge sense of dramatic irony, especially towards Roxanne, of where it's this constant we're about to solve everything, and then everything falls apart again. We're about to solve everything, and everything falls apart again. And in that way, it becomes then also a tragedy, right? Of where you have this person who should be succeeding in every single way of life if it were not for this one thing, and yet it has all fallen apart. And you know, despite being this person that should be beloved and should be this incredibly important person, has withered away to nothingness, because of this, as we learn eventually, right, this presumption that because of this one fault that he can never be anything important, and so you know, it is that personal failing that then destroys everything, and leaves him broken in so many ways, and leaves the world broken in so many ways. But yeah, I think it's it. I think that's it for Cyrano de Bergerac. I know I had a friend that taught this for one of her classes, and I know that she had said that her students were very interested in it, and in some ways I understand why, right? Because the entire concept of the play is very, very simple, but there is so much of this that, like, especially that first act, where it is just kind of like this drag of an act of like, well, why am I reading this? What is going on here? And then it just takes a while for you to get your footing within the play. Especially because I feel like within teaching this, but also just performing in general, right, that has to be that first act, and then that fourth act with the and even the second act, I think it is, with the meeting of Christian, and then the fourth act with the cadets. That has to be so fast, and like those lines have to just come out in order for it to make sense as to what we're doing here. And in terms of teaching this, and in terms of working with students that are reading this for the first time, right, you just don't get that. And so you end up with this thing of like, because this happened with the Scottish play, happens with the Crucible, of where, because they're struggling to read and understand at the same time, and they can't match that fast pace, the things that you talk about with those things sometimes miss. because you're not matching what should be done within the play, right? But yeah, that's it. That's Cyrano de Bergerac by Edmund Rostand.